Hoops Hype recently ranked the Bulls' trade assets at the bottom of the league. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but it's Saturday, so that means this episode is mainly built around your voicemails. We'll dive into the mailbag and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes. You guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And first up, I want to talk about this Hoops Hype article, right? And so the Bulls trade assets, it was an article that was ranking the trade assets of every team, and the Bulls ranked at the very bottom of the league. Now, there's a couple of different things that go into this. It's looking at contracts, age of players, draft picks and compensation and things like that. And while the Bulls, we all know, like their trade assets have been towards the bottom of the league lately. And the last couple of years, and I can understand that when you look at the Bulls really didn't have a lot of those kind of medium size contracts that they could combine to make moves and things like that. And when you look at the Bulls' overall roster, right, you look at, let's start at the top three. You got Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan being an expiring contract and a player that is either just or about to turn 34 years old, it makes sense that trade value is if you're not one of those teams that are really trying to make that move for a championship or near a championship contender, or maybe even already a championship contender, and you just want a little extra oomph, I can understand that, right? When you look at Zach LaVine, the size of his contract, the fact that, hopefully he's going to have his first fully healthy season in 3 years, by the way. He started off last season not 100%. He ended the season before that not at 100%, so hopefully he's able to stay fully healthy. But we all know, right, and especially when you look at the number of trade deals and packages and rumors that are surround Zach LaVine every single offseason, be it for the Lakers, either LA team, the New York Knicks, things like that. I would say this is that if the Bulls were to just put Zach LaVine on the open market, they would get a pretty nice size package back. Whoa, that is a pause moment. But they get a pretty nice amount of assets back for Zach LaVine. So I do think that Zach LaVine's trade value is a little bit higher than what the national media tries to give you. Now, in regards to the players that have tons of questions, like a Patrick Williams, still being 22 years old, I do think that if the Bulls did want to move him, then they could get some things back for him, right? Alex Caruso, we know the Bulls hold him in a high regard, and if they were to move him, they're going to want, the last rumor was 2 first-round picks back. Probably not going to get that. And ultimately, it's this, right? I do think that if the Bulls, let's say by the trade deadline, did decide to make a move with their roster, a sizable move, I do think that they can get a nice chunk of assets back. But being that if you're looking for like that one clear asset that is just going to set your franchise up for the next set of years, the Bulls are probably not going to get there. And then when you look at our draft value, while we only still owe 1 first-round pick out to the San Antonio Spurs, we have all our first-round picks after that, right? That even looking at the trade value for the Chicago Bulls and their draft assets right now, it's not going to be extremely high because the Bulls are one of those middle-of-the-pack teams, right? They can make the playoffs. They cannot make the playoffs. You can end up getting a lottery pick or you can get a early first or a mid first-round pick back for it. And so that's kind of goes into that. I think a lot of times when, kind of people who just read these articles kind of in a vacuum and don't really kind of look at things may look at that and say, what do you mean the Bulls value is the worst in the league? It's specifically trade value. And I think what goes into that, when you kind of start bringing that all together and look at that, it really kind of paints that full picture on why the Bulls are there. I would never make the argument that the Bulls have the best trade value, even when, the Rudy Gobert thing and really any deal for a recent star or superstar that's popped up that, Bulls fans want to get involved on. I always say the Bulls, there's no way that the Bulls can offer the best package at. And so ultimately, it really comes back, and this really highlights, and while it's a speculative article, I don't want to put too much credence on it. It really comes back down to the fact that the Bulls haven't developed anyone, right? We have not developed anyone. And yeah, a player like Kobe White can get you some things and stuff like that, but that goes back to why I do think that this front office is really kind of focused on developing that, letting things kind of go organically before they look to really fully blow it up. I know some Bulls fans have the hopes and dreams that a full rebuild's coming, whether it be if the Bulls are under 500 by the trade deadline or whatnot, and it's more than likely it's just not coming. And so, we'll see what this is for the Bulls, and if they do make a move. I've said before, considering the trade exception, the disabled player exception and still part of the mid-level exception and things like that they have, that if they wanted to get involved in a big trade by the trade deadline, they could do so, right? They can get involved in those talks, but it's what they would have to give up to give it. And I don't think that AK right now is in a place where he wants to give up any more draft assets at all. I think he looks at what he's given out to the Orlando Magic and other teams and what's still owed, to example, for the San Antonio Spurs. And I think he's looking at that and saying, listen, we want to, whether win or lose, wherever this team goes, we want to hold on to our draft assets. Now, the bigger question in that is, can this front office draft better, right, than what they have? Even though I like what they've done on paper, I still think a lot of these players that they drafted in Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Patrick Williams still have tons of potential, but can they draft better? And that's the bigger question than what you can get out in trade assets for it, because I just don't think that trade is coming. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on all that down below as far as the Bulls trade assets and value. Now, we did have another article from Bleacher Report, which you guys know Bleacher Report articles can be so hit or miss, in which they did power rankings for the Bulls roster. So just players in the Bulls. And in the bottom tier they had, they didn't have Lonzo ranked. Makes sense. He's not going to contribute this season. But in the bottom tier they had Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Carlik Jones, and Terry Taylor. And I agree with that. I think all these players are going to have a hard time cracking the rotation. They're going to have to either hang their hats on one thing that they do amazingly to get into the rotation. That's the Dalen Terry part of it. But when you look at Terry Taylor, I said it on yesterday's episode, if we get to the point where we're relying on heavy minutes for Terry Taylor, that either means that he's coming to training camp way better than what most people were expecting and thinking, or something's gone terribly wrong with the Chicago Bulls roster. And then Carlik Jones, even though Carlik's the G League MVP, he's had a nice FIBA run. We all know a 6'1" guard that has defensive limitations, especially on a guard-heavy team, you're not going to see him a lot. But as far as Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, if they're going to get minutes this season, whether it be consistent or inconsistent minutes, it's going to have to come via what they can do defensively. And we'll see, right? Julian Phillips, that athleticism, the shot, if that shot becomes legit, I can absolutely see him getting on the floor sooner rather than later, but he will have to show that. As far as in the middle tiers they have it, they have Jovan Carter listed as 6, Kobe, Tory Craig, Ayo Dosunmu, and Andre Drummond all following him. And I kind of agree with this as well. This is one of the better written ones. I think Andre Drummond's value can be more than what people are projecting. It just comes down to, is Billy Donovan actually going to play him? Yet again with the Chicago Bulls, and we'll talk about this a little bit more on Sunday's episode, is that we are still thin at the center position. And I think that increases Drummond's value if he limits some of the things that he does, the hard-headed things that he does, and if Billy Donovan is actually going to use him. Ayo Dosunmu I've already talked about. Ayo's going to have a hard time consistently cracking the rotation for Billy Donovan, considering he's a player that on a team that Billy likes to typically go 9 deep, and we'll see what that means for Ayo Dosunmu. And then Tory Craig and Jovan Carter. Here's the thing. I think that what their skill set is can pay off big for the Chicago Bulls this season because we need what they bring. But I kind of understand now. Kobe White. The biggest thing with Kobe is that if Kobe, as I called for in yesterday's episode, mixes post and pre All-Star break Kobe White, he's automatically going to go up into the next tier, and that's the top tier as far as power rankings for the Chicago Bulls. And you look up next, DeMar DeRozan, number 1, Zach, number 2, Nikola Vucevic, number 3, Alex Caruso, number 4, and Patrick Williams, number 5. I can honestly say, as much as I still believe in Patrick Williams, that you can make an argument for Kobe White deserving to be above Patrick Williams in this, because I think Kobe just understands his role a little bit more, has that scoring upside, but I understand why he's here as well. And ultimately, yes, it comes down to Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic. What those 3 players bring is going to really help tell the story for the Chicago Bulls, but they need better support for the rest of those players. So again, solid article from Bleacher Report. I don't say that too often, even though I technically work for Bleacher Report, but I got to still be honest. One thing you guys are going to always get from me is honesty and what my opinion truly is. And so a Bleacher Report video and Bleacher Report articles are 2 very different worlds. So that's what I got to say on that. But it's Saturday, so that means it's Mailbag Day. Let's go ahead and get into this first voicemail out of 3. This first one's from JD.
Hey, Hayes, it's JD from Indiana. I just kind of wanted to say something about the Bulls here. First off, I think their wins, I think they're going to get 48 wins for the season because of all the games they could have won last year, and also if they put put in the new rule for the whole challenge and stuff. You get more after you win one. I think that'll put a big, I think that'll change the game and the way the refs look at things too. So I think that'll change the game. And also, when we put in the shooting with Jovan Carter and Tory Craig, I think that they are going to. I think they will add that shooting that we needed. And also Kobe White, he's been doing huge. I saw a huge improvement last year, and I'm not even talking about scoring or numbers. I'm talking about ball handling and his confidence when it comes to the court. I mean, that guy, he in his passing too, he was doing awesome passing. So I think he's going to have a huge season this year. And with Tory Craig and Jovan Carter, I think Kobe White's going to be right up there with the shooting. And I think it's going to be a good season for us Bulls fans for sure. I think that we will definitely. I think teams are going to be scared of us for sure. And if we can stay away from those injuries like we've been having, I feel like ever since Derrick Rose, I feel like we always have those injuries every single season now. Someone's going down with something. So I think that I think that we'll do really good this season, and hopefully we can all walk together. So go Bulls.
48 wins for the season. That is a very optimistic view, and I hope that they can get it. Now, the added shooting of Tory Craig and Jovan Carter, I've talked about it ad nauseum almost at this point on this channel. It is going to be so important for them. And like I said, I'm not even going off Tory Craig, for example, having one great year of being a volume three-point shooter. Even what he brings just at his career averages would be so big with the point of attack defense and things like that. I do think the added shooting from those two guys is going to help this team. It's going to help space the floor. It's going to help have just players that don't shy away also from taking those three-point shots. One thing, as much as I criticize head coach Billy Donovan, one thing that I can even say, and I have to admit when it comes to Billy Donovan, is that his offense has generated open three-pointers. We just haven't had the players to take them consistently, or the players that are willing to take them. Sometimes players pass out of it, and I think that that's going to help the Chicago Bulls team drastically this upcoming season. So I love the acquisitions of it, right? I love what they did with what they had to work with, and I really am looking at those two players to really bring it. Jovan Carter, you guys know I've been saying since the Bulls signed him, he should be the starting point guard. I have him pegged to be the starting point guard. And Tory Craig, regardless if he starts over P. Willer, comes off the bench, he understands his role. And that was one of the benefits of just having veteran players that can play in almost any scheme. They understand their role. They understand how to get theirs without necessarily needing a bunch of calls played for them. And with the defense that those two players bring on top of that, it should definitely help the Chicago Bulls a lot in many of the areas that they needed in that. I know everybody totes this top 5 defense, but like our half-court defense was mid. And so I think that Jovan Carter and Tory Craig are going to help that half-court defense so much. And then as far as Kobe White having a big season, if I had to bet on any one player, if I had a hope, I hope that Patrick Williams takes that leap because I really think that helps this Bulls ceiling so much. But if I had to bet on any one player and stake my life on any one of these young players making that next step, that leap, so to say, it's Kobe White. I just think he's gotten to the place where he understands his game, his role, the mental part, and how he's improved certain parts of his game. All that is kind of evening out at the right time and same time as he's heading into his prime. And I think that what we saw defensively from Kobe and offensively post All-Star break from Kobe, I think that we're going to get a big season from Kobe White, regardless if he starts or comes off the bench. I think he's going to understand that role and he's going to thrive in it. But all right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Shay.
Hey, what's up? With all of the point guard depth that we get, I was wondering, and with how good all our point guards, excluding Kobe White, well, maybe a little bit Kobe White, are good on defense, do you think that we most likely will shut most of the point guards in the league down almost much? Because with the addition of Jovan Carter, and then you got Alex Caruso, and you got Ayo Dosunmu, who is not a slouch in that area of defense either. Do you think that most point guards, most teams with star point guards should be scared of the Chicago Bulls due to the fact that we have this much guard depth and the guards can actually shut any point guard down? Now, look, I'm not saying that one of the point guards get off on us, but I'm just saying for the most part, when it comes to when it comes to like the best guards, do you think that they should be scared of the Chicago Bulls, especially with our ability with Javon Carter and Alex Caruso and Ayo Dosunmu to shut a lot of people down? Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
All right, Shay. So here's what I'll say. I won't say necessarily shut down opposing point guards. I will say our point of attack defense is going to be much stronger and we can disrupt. Not many people can shut down anybody, right? It's just, especially the higher scoring guards, you can usually throw them off. You can make them have inefficient nights, but it's not common that you shut people down completely to where they just don't impact the game. But I do think that we're going to make it tough on opposing point guards, especially when you look at Caruso, Javon Carter, Ayo when he cracks the rotation, right? Those are three players that you can always have on the opposing team's best point guard that are pretty much going to be doing pretty good, right? Especially if Ayo gets back to what he was his rookie year. And then Kobe White. Here's what I'll say. Like, you almost said it like, hey, well, Kobe White kind of defensively. No, Kobe White took a big step defensively last year. And I think he's understanding how to use his size that he has over smaller guards, right? Yeah, Kobe, has the negative wingspan is what they call it, right? But I think that he's starting to understand how he can use his body to kind of throw opposing point guards off, because Kobe is a big point guard. So when he plays that role, I think he's starting to understand. That goes back to what I said in the last voicemail. He's understanding the basketball IQ portion of it and the physicality portion of it is really starting to even out and peak at both at the right time for Kobe. And if he continues to do that, he's just going to continue to take his defense to new heights and his game overall. But yeah, I won't necessarily saying shut down, but we are going to make opposing point guards have difficult nights. And when you look at the importance of point of attack defense, right? The Bulls theoretically are going to have that in both the half court, full. We got people who can guard the full length of the court, right? And just that disruptive defensive energy, I think the Bulls are going to thrive in that this season. And I think that's going to be a big reason as well why you can see this team kind of take the next step as a team, right? And by next step, I don't mean like be a finals contender. I just mean be a team that's not clawing their way to just make a play-in. So, we'll see what that happens with the Chicago Bulls, but I have faith in that, man. And great voicemail from you, Shay. All right, let's get into this last voicemail. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Brother Hayes? It's Big O, man. Host of the Chicago Bulls Block podcast, man. I went on and jumped on my own little thing, man. You motivated me to, put my passion where it needs to be, man. But just wanted to chime in. I thought it was a great episode you did. Your mega soul got a lot of the Chicago Bulls content created together, their predictions, all that. Pretty cool. I called in to give you mine. I got the Bulls. I honestly, and I've been saying this, I've been consistent with this. Boots, Zach, and DeMar alone should get you 45 wins. They three talented players. They should get you 45 wins. They have underachieved with that the last couple seasons. I think Jovan and Craig helped them get to that mark. So I think 43 to 45 wins is realistic. I think if anybody took them for over 45 wins, it's a bold prediction. Now that doesn't mean that it can't happen. I just think that the questions around the point guard position, imagine the Bears coming into the NFL season with the question around the quarterback position, saying that it's got to be open competition for the quarterback position. Would nobody take the Bears seriously, right? I feel the same way about the point guard position. I think it ain't just for the Bulls, it's especially for the Bulls, but I think around the NBA. I think if your point guard, if you don't know who your quarterback is on your team, if it's not concrete that who this guy is, then there's going to be questions around your team, and I think it's legit. And also, I don't trust Billy Donovan either. I don't know if he then got better at his job enough to have this team to get over 45 wins. So that's kind of like my take on that. I know they practicing in Tennessee. Training camp is in Tennessee. Look, I don't care if they practice in Pelican Bay Prison. I don't care if they on Mars. Look, as long as Billy Donovan brings this team together, get these guys to buy in and create a system that's going to benefit this team the best way to get the W. You know what I mean? That's all I really care about. But yeah, I got 45 wins, but we got to get this point guard position situated. That's what's going to set the tone for the team. And until we get and we know what the team point guard is going to be, we have to sit back and wait and see how it turns out. So that's my take, bro. I'll holler at you on the next one.
All right, Big O with great points here. Shout out to you starting your podcast. Here's what I'll say with everybody on that. Do it. If you feel that you're passionate about it, do it. And even if it doesn't work out for you, if you try it eventually and you're like, hey, it's hard for me to stay consistent in this, at least you tried. You eliminated that question, right? I'm always going to support everyone that wants to start a show, and I'm glad that you went out and did that, Big O. Keep it pushing. Now, with that being said, 43 to 45 wins, I think that's a realistic area to expect the Chicago Bulls to be in. That's fair. Now, when you say that, the doubts around the starting point, I get it that you linked it to the NFL, but I see it as very different things, right? Because there's so many different ways that a point guard can play on a team that, yes, it brings questions when you don't know who you're because if it's Kobe or Javon Carter, those are very different players and they would bring very different things to the starting lineup. I think that with Kobe, if you bring him into that starting lineup, if he ends up winning that, you want to play inside out. You want to play more with Nikola Vucevic operating, use Kobe White in a similar way to Jamal Murray, right? Not comparing the players, just the way that you can use them. If Javon Carter ends up being your starting point guard, because he's not the best facilitator either, but he's not the scorer Kobe is. He's a really good shooter. That it changes that, right? And I think the doubt around Billy Donovan, I think, plays a bigger part than the Bulls not necessarily having their point guard locked in yet. But I get what you're getting at with that, and I think overall, as I've been saying for a while now, there's just tons of questions over this Bulls roster. And so hopefully we look to eliminate some of those questions in training camp and in preseason. And overall, we see a better season from the Chicago Bulls. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on all the voicemail topics down below. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.